and welcome to this edition of Trader Talk TV. Today we got Vincent
is fine.
Vincent Potier in the office. Vincent is now a specialist in GDPR, and today we're going to talk about the effect that GDPR is going to have on the EU market. It's only 1 month away, people. Get excited or hide in your cave, whatever you want to do. But Vincent, we're talking today about the sort of effect it has on the EU. Obviously, the EU is made up of many member states, and they all are approaching this differently. So before we do that, tell us what you're doing right now.
Sure. So in the last few months, I've rekindled my consultancy business called London Digital Ventures Limited. So I basically consult on ad tech, advertising technology, data management, international expansion, general business strategies. But because I've done a lot of work on data privacy and on GDPR specifically, right now, to be honest, I'm working most of my time on GDPR projects with many clients.
Okay. So obviously we've got May 25th coming up,
Yep.
the big day for Europe and privacy, and there's a lot of confusion in the market right now about everything relating to GDPR. Some people are putting their heads in the sand, others are taking a more active approach like Google and others and the IAB. But obviously every country seems to have its different approaches. So we have a very kind of a UK perspective here from London, like it's the biggest digital ad market in Europe. But it'd be interesting to know how the French, the Germans, Northern Europeans and Southern Europeans are approaching GDPR. So let's talk about sort of the other two big markets specifically.
Sure.
In the first instance. Let's talk about Germany first and what they're doing and how they're approaching this.
Sure. So look, you're absolutely right, if I may say. So number one, I mean, it's a European regulation, so it should actually be implemented exactly in the same way in all the different markets which are being impacted, which is 31 markets, so 28 markets of the EU, plus the 3 which are part of the EEA but not of the EU. And you are also right, London has a very Anglo-American view about it, which actually is very, very much in conformity with the law as it is read, but less cognizant of the past of the national legislations, the way it would be looked at in France and Germany. So now, you obviously have 3 very big markets in ad tech in Europe, as you said, UK, France and Germany. As for Germany is complex, okay? It's a complex market. It is a market, number one, where some people may know it and some people may not. Cookie law, the so-called e-privacy directive, which was implemented in the ad tech industry in 2011, has never really been implemented in Germany. So today you go to German sites, you don't see cookie banners. Why? Because the Germans consider that the data privacy they already have in place is actually good enough in order to meet that objective. Now, what is going on? So the second thing you need to know is in Germany, you don't really have, the way it works is very different from the other countries with regards to the regulator, meaning the data protection authority. Why? Because in Germany it's all by land or by state. So right now what happens is you've got 3 data protection authorities in Germany which are very influential and which are kind of trying to find a common position. They are the ones from Bayern, so because of Munich, the one also of Hamburg, because Hamburg is a pretty big ad tech hub, and also Schleswig-Holstein, which is north of Hamburg. These are the 3 which are quite important. But then you've got a very complex game going on with publishing houses in Germany, which are clearly the most powerful, and the government trying to influence so that if they don't have to implement something where you've got like very lengthy consent mechanisms on publisher sites.
So let's give you a scenario, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say I'm a disgruntled privacy advocate,
Yep.
right? And I go onto my favorite German site. I don't know what that might be. One of those crazy newspapers, and I get retargeted by a unnamed large French retargeter against my consent. Without my consent at all.
It's not me. Yeah?
It's not you. I'm not happy. So what happens? And the Germans are obviously taking a legitimate interest because I'm on the site. Therefore, I'm happy to be retargeted across the internet, chased around by crazy ads that are not relevant to me and are a complete waste of money. What do I do? I mean, would I contact the data authorities in those geographies, or would it be more of a European? What I'm trying to do is frame what would happen. That these countries are taking individual approaches to this. So Germans, from what I hear, a lot of the German publishers are taking legitimate interest. and the French too. So I'm saying I'm not based in France, and I'm not based in Germany, but I'm not happy about what's happened here. So is it a European route that I take?
Very good question, Kieran. So actually, the legislator has already anticipated your question.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Smart people, and so there is a process. I mean, for cross-country problems like the one you described. So in your example, in your use case, it's a German guy, a user living in some state in Germany who has been retargeted by a French retargeting company.
Yes.
And
on a German site.
On a German side. So basically, the way it works is the user will actually logically contact the data protection authority here, not of his country, because Germany is unique, but of his state.
Right.
And that data protection authority will then contact the company in its main place of establishment, which is Paris.
Right.
That means it will probably be a discussion between the user, the head office of that company, and the data protection authority in that state in Germany, and the French data protection authority. And in theory, the one which is being seized is actually the data protection authority of the main place of establishment of the company which is involved, therefore of Paris. Okay, in theory, it should be the way it works. But it's very clear that the two need to cooperate. If they don't agree, okay, and I can't describe all the steps because I don't know them anyway, they're not laid out in the legislation, then they have created something which is totally new, a European Data Protection Board, which is supposed to arbitrate between different disagreements between the different data protection authorities, and that will happen. It's one of the elephants in the room in the GDPR topic, the GDPR project. It's a fact that we assume that because it's a regulation, it's European, everything will flow naturally, everyone will look at things in a very similar way, but it's not going to be the case.
So, okay. Do you think that let's talk about, because it seems the French and the Germans are very much going on the legitimate interest thing, hoping everything goes away, right? A lot of publishers are.
Yeah, correct.
What should their approach be? I mean, I think that it's unwise because there will be someone who will take this to court. There will be someone who will test this legislation. There is no wriggle room here. There's maybe some wriggle room, but the last thing is a brand wants to be is ended up in a court of law.
Sure.
So what approach should these publishers? Do you think that sort of things like single sign-on, for instance, that the Portuguese publishers are pushing ahead of it, do you think that is potentially an opportunity for publishers to kind of steal a march on the market in terms of getting closer relationships with users? I mean, there's a couple of things. Do you think that's something they should think about?
So it's a fascinating question. So first of all, short answer, yes, and yes, okay? Now, a little bit more developed. So number one, you're right, many publishers are going for legitimate interest. Also, many publishers are changing their mind last minute because of the position of some very large actors who are basically telling them, I'm going fully for consent, and if you want to be on my platform, you'd better go for consent. Then, second point, we should also remember that because GDPR, a law is as good as its enforcement, it is very likely, I think, that we will, post 25th of May, be all, for a few weeks or a few months, have a full sense of comfort, which will be we will not hear of a law of enforcement happening immediately.
Because it doesn't take that long. So to build the case, yeah, you would need at least 3, 4, 5 month window, right? Yeah. If I was going to attempt some kind of litigation on behalf of disgruntled users, I would basically just go to a couple of websites, maybe buy something on Amazon or buy something on an e-commerce site, and then I would just basically start traveling through the site, and I would just basically wait to be retargeted, and then I will do all my sort of analysis of who actually is responsible for that, and then I will just see, did I actually consent for this ad, and is there any way to opt out? I mean, that's
maybe you're right. You're talking about I'm talking about months. You're talking about weeks, and maybe you're right.
Yeah.
I just look at the number of staff of each DPA, and I know it's not a lot, and they've got a lot of things to do. That's why I'm just saying maybe, because everyone is quite stressed right now, pre 25th. Maybe on the 26th or on the 1st of June, we'll just see, oh, nothing is happening, and I think it will be an illusion. I think it will be a false sense of comfort. Anyway, back to your question about the logging alliance. You're right, Nonio, the Portuguese actually have innovated with the six big Portuguese publishers having one login alliance, which allows actually the publishers to capture some personal data from, and such as names and email addresses, etc., from their users. And I think what you're pointing to is one of the developments that I'm anticipating in the market, and I think it points to a reality, which is one, the GDPR will be transformative. Data and data management will be totally different from what it used to be, and it's also a great opportunity for publishers to be back at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, their GDPR gives them the opportunity of being put again at the center of the ecosystem.
And it's well, I was sitting on a panel this week. It seems like a big opportunity for them. They have the consumer facing relationship, and it helps to build stronger relationships with the users. Obviously, we talked about this login. A login you can't bundle consent into a login, but what the login helps is to build stronger relationship with the users, and obviously build products around that. And obviously, we can target contextually on the targeting within the publisher's domain, but it seems like an opportunity. We've got, I often think they've got three buckets, right? You've got the premium, utility, and long tail, right? And the utility would be Facebook and Google, right? Utility sites. They have search, social, and all the apps in the utility basis. And then you have the premium bucket, which is basically the quality publishers in the UK, like the Guardian, the Telegraph, the Times, those type of publishers, and then in France, Le Figaro, etc. There's an opportunity for them to build that sort of deterministic data that they never had.
True.
And under the guise, well, not the guise, but at the behest of this legislation. And it could change mindsets, and then obviously puts them in a stronger position, particularly with the buyers, because agencies don't have relationships with users. Ad tech doesn't have relations. It's the publishers, and they're in the driving seat here.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. That's exactly what I think. I also think that the way we're going to target, for media campaigns, is going to change. I think, and I know it's another elephant in the room. I don't think that the predominance of the cookie as the main point of the main personal data saying things about users and allowing us to create audience segments and therefore to target, I do not believe it's going to last forever.
Right.
I know people have been saying that for a very long time, and it's proved wrong so many times. But I think this time, that's it. I think.
What do you think will happen? New technology, or
I think you will still. I think you will still have cookies for some of the market. I think the market is going actually to split and to diverge. I think there will be different kind of targeting. There will be nearly you'll have premium targeting, you'll have bulk targeting, the way we've had with deterministic and probabilistic. If you think about the mobile industry, people already had this idea that deterministic is actually more accurate, but you can't scale it, and that's why you've got probabilistic. So I think there will be some kind of a tiering of the strength of the targeting. So cookies might be like your run-of-the-mill, but then you'll have real data, such as, I'm not saying that cookie is not real, but you'll have data which is slightly more refined, such as the data you get from the login alliances. I think you may see a resurgence of a new form of contextual targeting. I think, if you've got very good technology which really, really categorizes pages very, very well, I think
that's probably the reason why Oracle shelled out $400 million for Grapeshot this week.
I don't know how much they paid, but I think it has to do with that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you will have part of the market which will go there. You've got the opportunity of just of really categorizing pages much better than it's currently done, and I think you're not even touching data. You're not touching personal data because you're touching the page.
You think contextual targeting will make a comeback?
Yeah.
Real granular contextual targeting mapped to, the ID can be mapped to, obviously, because that's
and remember what I said. I say divergence. So I'm not saying that suddenly the market will be about contextual, but I just think it will be more about contextual than it used to be. And but as I said, I think it will split, and there will be all kinds of data sets which you use. And the notion is that there will be a lot of transparency between the advertiser, the agency, and the vendor and the user, or at least much more. The other thing that you said earlier in your question, which is so fundamental, because we talk about this is the position of the ecosystem at the publisher level and the user level and the vendor level and the agency. What counts is how the money flows. and it cascades down. And what counts when the advertisers take a stance, the way they did a week ago with the WFA release, which is pointing to the Manifesto for Data Online Transparency from all the largest advertisers in the world. It means we want data transparency, we want data minimization, we want consent, and this is what is going to drive the market.
I think that's the biggest thing for this market.
Yep.
It's not about, we could sit here and have many philosophical conversations about what is legitimate interest, what is consent.
You're right.
But at the end of the day, if an advertiser thinks that they might end up in a court of law, in a PR disaster, or being embroiled in some really dodgy thing like I'm not saying that would happen at Cambridge Analytica, a type of disaster which is basically egged on by the press and all the rest of it, it would be a complete disaster, and it would devalue trust in that brand. It would affect the brand, and brands are not going to take that risk. They want buttoned up privacy and consent and all the rest.
100%. They will be, you've got the legislator and the advertisers are going to go totally on board, and they'll be the main drivers of that change in data management and in data transparency in the coming months.
So just to finish the conversation, because obviously we went from like geographic into minute detail.
Yeah.
Who are the winners out of this, do you reckon, and who are the losers?
Oh, God, that's very, very, very
We don't have
hard.
to name specific companies, but
No, I know.
classifications would be
I
quite
know.
interesting.
I'd say I'll answer in two very small parts. I mean, the first part is obvious, is the winners are the ones, even part of the same category, are the ones who are going to take GDPR seriously.
Right.
And early on, and understand that it's not a compliance tick box exercise, but it is the beginning of a data transformation. Okay.
Right.
And you cannot be in a tech, handle data which feeds any targeting, and not consider that your data management has to include data privacy as a key component. So that's point one. Point two, I'd say publishers have the potential to win. I'd say advertisers who take a very strong stance and very non-ambiguous stance, thinking about the future of the market rather than protecting their short-term interest, have a potential to win. So some of the big guys, also the guys who are taking a conservative stance amongst the very large internet ad tech companies today, have a better chance to win than the ones who are not taking that very strong stance and kind of fighting it. I think anything which is not 100% reliant on personal data has a good chance. I would encourage companies not to give up, obviously, on their business model. Absolutely not, because things don't go so fast. But rather to start thinking, is there? And I know it's another elephant in the room. Is there other ways also of targeting people without having to use personal data?
Do you think that, just after having a thought there, do you think that companies that work on a first party basis, so let's just think about Google Analytics, which is kind of in a kind of a grey area, and it could end up being a very grey area for Google, because say what they like, Google Analytics is used to power their data and ingest their data. They're using that data, so consent is probably required for Google Analytics at some stage, which probably is going to be an absolute nightmare for most publishers. But is there an opportunity for a first party ecosystem? Let's just say that me and you start a company with first party analytics, right? So we sell licenses as opposed to using the data as our model, right? So we said to the publisher, pay us a license fee. You'll have the ability to track users in your domain without targeting them, right? So you're not using, the data is used as a legitimate interest for the site use as opposed to anything else. So is there an ecosystem around like viewability, first party companies who build on a marketed tech sort of license basis, as opposed to like, you give our data for free, it's a free product, but we use our data to target? Google's not giving that Google Analytics for free. They're using that data for targeting, right? And I think they're going to have to try and get consent for that as well.
Okay, so what you said, I think you're on to something. But be careful, there is also something fundamental in the law, sorry to go back to technical, which is if you do that and you've got a business model which is obtaining data, and then at some point you decide to use it for something else, remember, you need that consent for that something else too. If not, you can't.
So but if the business model is not, so analytics is important here, right? Because analytics can be considered a legitimate interest, right? Because it actually shows you what's going on. You're not using analytics to target, you're using analytics to find out what your traffic is on the site.
Sure.
So you can go to an advertiser, I have 100,000 uniques based on this data, right? I'm not using it to target. Whereas Google Analytics is a bit more trickier because you put the tag on the page. It's a third-party tag, right? Google ingests that data. It segments that data and then uses it for targeting across AdWords and other things. So it's Google's in real hot water with this, and as an opportunity, I think it's huge because how many sites are using Google Analytics?
Oh, you're right.
I mean, we use it.
I know, you're right.
Loads of other sites use it. All of the competitors use it. The whole industry uses it. So it's an interesting space.
Yeah, you should edit that piece, Kieran, because
think
we've got a business model here.
If there's any VCs out there, I'm available anytime. KieranExchangeWare.com. Vincent, thanks for that.
You're very welcome.
Really, really good overview. And I'll tell you what, we'll have you back in 3 months, and when the first court case hits courts, we'll discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
All right. Thanks, Vincent.
Thank you.
And that was Trader Talk TV, and we'll see you next time.